Hello, everyone. Good evening. Today is September 12, 2023, and it is a momentous day because this is the day that the Ironjawz free rules download supplement is made available to all of us. I'm Lance, and I am with Wartilyo. We are a Manila-based gaming club, and I am really, really into Ironjawz. So you have no idea how absolutely excited I am to finally see the Grunta rules. I gave this a little bit of a browse before recording this video, but I haven't really digested any of it. So before going to the supplement, I have to start with the article. I'm not gonna go over this because we're gonna look at it. We're gonna be able to see it later. But this part down here we come. This is a battle trait that is going to be included in the Dawnbringer's Book 2, Reign of the Brute, under the army of renown called the Grunta Stampede. It's an entire army of renown that revolves around the Hogs of War, both big and small. So I can imagine us seeing Maw Gruntas and Gore Gruntas both having these unique enhancement and allegiance abilities. And it's actually really exciting because a lot of us have been asking for a leader with a Grunta type mount for a long time now. So as a preview of what's to come, you can see here that during the first battle round, the battle trait of this army is to not subtract one from the momentum score of friendly Gore Maw Grunta units at the end of each turn. This is actually kind of insane because it allows it allows you to play this army a bit more strategically when going first. And I'll get to that a bit later. I'll circle around this to why this is such an important trait to have. This is the supplement. And honestly, it looks great. There's so much art and so much lore that you can sift through. Some of the art is kind of old, but some of the art in it is some of the best art they have in Age of Sigmar. This book has more love than some of the tomes. This has more love than Feck has received the entire edition. Like, look at this art. It's freaking amazing. It features some of the new units. It features the new Ard Boys fighting some Daughters of Cain. And this is like phone wallpaper worthy. It's really good. But I'm not gonna oogle over the artwork so much. Tonight, because this is all basically free anyway. So you can look at this at your own leisure from Warhammer community. Tonight, though, I'm going to be focusing on the stars of the show, the Maw Gruntas, and the new foot heroes in the form of the Ard Boy, Big Boss, Anvil Smasher, and a bunch of these weirdos that I'll talk about in a second. So I'm going to scroll a little closer. And the star of the show. A few months ago, they previewed this at the Las Vegas Open, if I recall correctly. And everyone was so curious as to what they'd do. The only thing we knew about the Tusk Boss and the Maw Grunta was that there would be at least two variations, like a hero and a battle line version of the unit. Well, thing is there are three. So let's get started. This puppy over here has several attacks that have 1 or 2 inch ranges, which actually makes it a little bit more versatile than the Maw Crusher in some when it comes to like pylons. The fact that your base is also an oval base gives you a bit of leeway in pylon tricks. So Mighty Destroyer would actually be very interesting because you're able to change the orientation of your base with something this big. So it's got 6 attacks, 3s and 3s, rend 1, 2 damage. So a little less damage than the Mega Boss on Maw Crusher. It has Mighty Tusks, which are 2 attacks, 3s and 3s, rend 3 with damage that increases and decreases based on the momentum score. I'll get to that in a sec. Trampling Totters. It's got 4 attacks, 3s and 3s, rend 1, D3 damage each. And the Killa Chappas, 3s and 3s, rend X and damage 2. There's a lot of profiles in this, and I'm not crazy about the fact that it has become it's not an elegant war scroll. I have to roll like 4 different sets of dice just to have it represented. But this is where the mechanics get kind of crazy, like with what GW has in mind. This is introducing a whole new mechanic called Unstoppable Momentum. The unstoppable momentum is represented by how much movement your Gore Grunta has done during the course of the game. Every time you run or you charge, you roll D3 and you add D3 to the momentum score. The minimum of the score is 1 and the maximum of the score is 3, meaning if you run on turn 1, there's a chance that you can get up to 4, okay? However, at the end of each turn, you subtract the score by 1. This circles back to what we talked about earlier with the battle trait, because the battle trait the battle trait makes it so that you don't lose momentum in round 1. If your opponent outdrops you, they can't just give you the first turn, so you immediately run out of momentum. You can take turn 1, play a little bit more squeamish, and use Mighty Destroyer, and then maybe make a run move to claim an objective or position better, so that all your Gore or your Maw Grunters can gather momentum without losing momentum in round 1. Losing priority top of round 2 is still going to be painful because you still subtract 1 momentum. However, it makes it so that your unit at least has a solid chance of being above 1 and being able to move 10. This movement of 9, 10, 11, or 12 is actually kind of huge because you could actually use Fast One and the other mount traits in line with the Maw Grunta. And being able to move 12 gives you like a Maw Crusher's movement without having the fly ability. And you also don't have as big a base, so you have a lot more freedom to choose where you're going to land. It's going to be really interesting learning how to play this. I don't think this is going to be as straightforward as Ironjawz normally is. I think there will be some kind of art in gathering momentum over the course of the game. I also don't see this as a purely alpha strike kind of mechanic. For now, I think that Iron Suns will benefit the most because being able to charge during your opponent's turn is actually going to remove a lot of options for your opponent of just staying out of combat. Not only that, but it also has a new monsters rampage known as Carve the Path. So you can pick an enemy unit with the wound characteristics of 4 or less within 3 inches of this unit and roll a die. If the roll is less than the unit's momentum score, the enemy unit suffers a number of mortal wounds equal to the roll, and you can immediately attempt a charge with the unit. So it's very interesting. Reaching 6 momentum might be possible if you're able to get lucky on turn 1, where you run, you roll D3, you get 3 to get momentum 4, you charge and add another D3, and then and if you don't reach 6, you can carve a path and then charge again to increase your momentum even further. So there are some ways to get lucky with this, although it's very swingy. I actually see this army going full ham, pun intended, on turn 2. Because you can use turn 1 to run. If you get lucky and you don't reduce the score by 1 using the Army of Renown battle trait, you can use turn 2 to move further with Mighty Destroyer, charge to add another D3, and then carve a path to add another D3 to whichever Maw Grunter you have that doesn't have a high enough momentum. So, as I said earlier, like if you have a momentum score of 4 or more, you can charge even if it ran earlier in the turn, which is very important because once you hit the momentum of 4, you're almost certainly going to be able to hit 6 if you roll a 3 and up when you charge. And this is a very fast unit. The problem I have with this is that it doesn't feel like it's independent. It feels as though you're either going to need a mega boss with mega bossy, or you're going to need some kind of command trait or artifact or ability that lets you command multiple units to either do extra charges or run in charge or mighty destroy multiple units. I can see a Maw Crusher actually being good with an army of 3 Maw Gruntas so that they could take advantage of the run and charge to make them have an insane range. Like even at 9 inches, if you run 15 and then you're able to get lucky to run and charge, that's a movement of 9 plus 15, 24 inches, and then charge. I can also see Kragnos being interesting in this. However, the one thing missing in this entire War Scroll for me is impact hits. The tiny Gore Gruntas have impact hits, but these guys don't. So your focus isn't on charging a lot. The focus is on charging, killing things, and then charging again, or being able to go past like very small screens. Because the Monsters Rampage craft lets you activate if your opponents have a wound characteristic of 4 or less, but you can only fly over units that have a wound characteristics of 1 or 2. It feels almost as if this was designed to play against Cities of Sigmar, which has a lot of different types of screens that have this kind of mechanic. But that's the Tusk Boss. I'm really excited about it. It does decent amounts of damage. It's a little swingier than a Maw Crusher, but I can see it being more points effective when we get to the points later. The thing that stands out to me though is if I look at the keywords, it's Ironjawz, it's a hero, it's a monster being great. It's a Maw Grunt and a Tusk Boss, but it's not a Mega Boss. So one thing that this supplement does not have are the command traits, artifacts, and other enhancements that might be relevant to this kind of subfaction. So even if you have the supplement, you kind of need Reign of the Brute in order to unlock its full potential. Next, let's look at a Maw Grunta. I think this one is a bog standard one. I think this is either going to be a Behemoth or a Battle Line. So this has a 4-up save instead of a 3-up save. It has a bravery of 7 instead of bravery of 8. It's not a hero, but it is elite, so it can command itself, which is very good. It's got 4 attacks instead of 6. The Mighty Tusk and the Killa Chappas are about the same, I believe. And it has the same profile. It only has 2 less attacks than the Tusk Boss. The one thing that the Tusk Boss has over this one is that if the Tusk Boss makes a charge, you can reroll charges for all other Maw Gruntas in your army. Yeah, it's just Maw Gruntas, not Gore Gruntas. So it'd actually be kind of insane if you have a Maw Grunta that lets you reroll all charges and you pair it up with Bloodtooths and you can still reroll Hunt and Crush. I feel like that's not going to be the case. I think this is an army that's going to thrive off of Bloodthirsty instead of Inspired as a Triumph. But let's see. This has all the same tricks as the Tusk Boss, except with less attacks and doesn't have Headlong Charge. So I'm not going to dwell on this one too much. Same Monsters Rampage. And not a hero. Okay. This one does not come with the Side Sponson Ironjawz models. And it looks like it is a lot weaker. It doesn't have the Side Chappas. Instead, it has a similar profile to the previous one with less wounds. It only has 12 instead of 14 wounds. As a Monsters Regiment, and I'm going to assume that this can be Battle Line because it was hinted that one of them could. I think you could reinforce this twice to make a single unit of 3 Maw Gruntas. And they're already emphasizing off the bat that only one of these models can carry a Monsters Rampage. Now, because it has 3 models, I doubt that the Monsters Rampage is going to allow you to move further. So it has the momentum mechanic. It has Headlong Charge just like the previous 2. It has a different Monsters Rampage flattened into mud. Only a model in the unit that has made a charge move this turn can carry out this Monsters Rampage. Pick an enemy unit with a wounds characteristic of 1 or 2 within 3 inches of this unit and roll a die. If the roll is less than the unit's momentum score, the strike last effect applies to the enemy unit. This one's very interesting because normally the strike last, strike first type of thing is not that relevant. I think this is an interesting tool to use against Fire Slayers or anything with strike first, but normally or traditionally an Ironjawz army would have the confidence to go up against enemy armies and just use smashing and bashing to bypass any kind of combat sequence shenanigans they would have. So this extra precaution for strike last is really good because if you whiff one of your swingier attacks in a different combat, then it frees up and saves this unit from the mistakes of the other unit. Destruction, Orc Warclan, Orc, Ironjawz, Monster, Maw Grunta, Gougers. Okay. So far this is pretty good. It is okay for the amount of damage it does. This profile, I feel, makes it very good at bullying smaller units, but I cannot see this thing mowing down a large unit the way a Maw Crusher does because it has higher Ren than 2 attacks, but it's only 2 attacks. The Maw Crusher has 8 attacks at Ren 2. That's usually a lot more consistent, though the Ren 3 is very interesting on Wattern because I can see it being a good tool against OBR, although 2 attacks a pop is not consistent or not very good. So I actually see this a Maul Grunta army as being very different from a normal Ironjawz army, that it doesn't rely as much on smashing and bashing. You need to be extremely good at picking, especially good at picking your targets and bullying smaller units that are left out. This thing I don't see clearing out like multiple units at a time. Although a unit of three Maul Grunta, a unit that has three Maul Grunta Gougers is interesting. With a big base and a range of only 1 to 2 inches, you're gonna have a bit of a challenge piling in, especially during tight if you have tight spaces. I can imagine that three of these put together would have a more challenging base to move around than a Maw Crusher, especially without fly. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So far, the Maw Grunters are interesting. They're really cool. The unstoppable momentum is a mechanic that I really want to test out over the course of time. But I also see it being a bit hard to put a stamp of approval on without seeing the rest of the mechanics. And I'll probably add a reaction to Reign of the when Reign of the Brute comes out in a couple weeks. Pre-orders is this weekend, so we'll probably get like maybe leaks next week, or Games Workshop might release the rest of it next week. All right, now moving on to our first Foot Boy, Art Boy Big Boss. When this was first announced, I was very skeptical because I can't imagine anyone picking this over a War Chanter. But this thing is obviously made to be played with Art Boys, just like the War Chanter is. So I can imagine an army of Ironjawz, specifically the Choppas, where you have something like this, no Mock Crusher, no Mega Boss, this and a bunch of War Chanters, a bunch of small heroes with weird knobs. Especially in this season of Antdor, you can give them Horfrost, and you can use these as the Art Boys as a shield or to set up for Blizzard or something like that, have multiple weird knobs. I can see new builds actually emerging from this, and it's kind of exciting. This one allows for multiple rallying. And what makes this different from the normal Art Boys rally? The Art Boy War Scroll in the book already has the ability to rally in a 4+, but that's only if the boss of the unit champion gives the order and a war chance within 12. This one allows you to do it for multiple Art Boys units within within command range. So I can see this being an interesting general choice if you're going for that kind of build. And you can do it up to 2 times. So I think that if the MSU of Art Boys is 5, well, it's still gonna be kind of weird because if you have to spend all your reinforcements on Art Boys, I don't think you can really come up with a big block or a big defensive block like this. But it's weird and interesting that GW is giving Ironjawz these defensive options. It feels antithetical to how the army should work, but let's see what else we have here. Zogrok Anvil Smasher. So besides the failure of a unique character that is Gordrak, I like his profile, but I wish he had better lore. Zogrok Anvil Smasher seems to be a support piece. So if you give him the Grunta Tongs on a 2+, you can give mortal wounds on a 6+ to a unit within wholly within 12 inches of him. So on top of a War Chanter giving the buff, you can make it so that they deal mortal wounds on 6s and let's say 2 damage each. On top of Horfrost, I can see this being cool on Art Boys. You can make them Ren 3, 2 damage each with 6s to hit our mortals. You can just rely on that volume, and this would be kind of broken. Okay. This is kind of cool. He also has an option to pick either the tongs or the ward smashing choppa. On a 6, it removes. Okay. On a 6 to hit, it removes ward rolls for the rest of the game for that unit. I have mixed feelings about this because this only has 2 attacks with 7 wounds and 3 up save, 4-inch movement. I don't see this guy being a consistent combat monster. I mean, he's interesting, but I think I would go for the tongs for the more reliable 2-up. He's also specifically an Iron Sun's hero, so any dreams that the Choppas would have in using him kind of went down the drain here. That's really unfortunate. I was hoping the Choppas would get some kind of buff, but he's specifically Iron Sun, so let's see. Let's see how the rest of it moves. Okay, Brute Ragers. Naked Brutes. So instead of having a 4-up save, you have a 4-inch movement, a 5-up save, and you can still run, and you can run in charge. This makes them really fast. You can Mighty Destroyer for 4 inches to move 4, movement of 4. If you auto run the unit and you have a Maw Crusher to auto run multiple of these guys, you can effectively move 14 inches before charging, which is really big for Ironjawz. They're elites, they can issue commands to themselves. And they're even braver than normal brutes, because a normal brute has a bravery of 6. This is a bravery of 7, which is great. If an unmodified hit roll for an attack made with the Brute Crusher is 6, that you cause 3 mortal wounds automatically. Okay, so there are 3 profiles. And this actually reminds me a lot of Mogrock's Crushes. It's an underworld unit that is in the original Orc War Clan book. 6 attacks, Chain Smash of 4s and 4s, Rend 1, 2 damage each. Mighty Gore Hakas, 3s and 3s, Rend 2, 2 damage each. This is like the Brute weapon. And the Brute Crusher, 3 attacks, 4s and 4s, Rend 1, D3 damage each, but with a chance of doing auto mortal wounds. I'm not crazy about Games Workshop introducing more mortal wound mechanics to the game. It would have been. This is probably better against Night Hunt or things with Ethereal, but I feel like Ironjawz should lean more into their having ludicrous amounts of Rend instead. But this is also kind of cool. It has the brute keyword, but it doesn't really. Oh no. Okay, it having the brute keyword is kind of important because it means that if you're playing the Chappas, which I know I keep getting back to the Chappas, you have the War Chanter buff this, brutes and Ard boys all together, right? So this actually I feel like is going to be the Chappas unit because one of the Chappas' weaknesses is the army is very slow. So giving them these faster options that aren't Gore Gruntas might actually be really good. Weird Brute Rekkas. Okay, so 6 attacks, 4s and 4s, Rend 1, 2 damage each. Can run and charge. If an unmodified hit roll for this attack is 6 and the target has 10 or more models, that attack scores 2 hits on the target instead of just 1. Make a wound roll and save roll for each hit. Okay, so this thing wants to fight hordes, and it's like Games Workshop made this as an apology to Ironjawz having such a terrible matchup against Soulblight Gravelords. I think, however, that the original brutes with a 4-up save with the ability to negate opponents from contesting objectives is a much better anti-horde tool than this one. Although Rend 2, 3 damage, fully buff Weird Brute Rekkas with a mortal wound 6 to mortal wounds on 6s with Anvil Smasher is also interesting. I think that this one does less, but let's see what the points are going to be at later. The unit has a ward save of 5 up, while within 3 inches of enemy units. Okay, that's interesting. And the bravery of 7 is pretty good if it's a unit of 3. But I'm not super stoked about this yet. I feel like this is the kind of unit that you'd have if you want to pin your opponent in place with the Chappas. You basically have 2 War Chantas, you buff several weird brutes, and you have an Art Boy that is there to reinforce your Art Boy Big Boss to reinforce your chef. What do you do with this? This is so weirdly specific. So this is good against Gits and Soulblight. I'll give this a try. It's just that on paper, it doesn't inspire a lot of confidence. It's just 9 wounds, and the damage is swinging because it's 4s and 4s. It's a brute that wounds on a 4+. That is not respectable. Okay, Ard boys. Okay, already off the bat, we can see some major changes. The attack profile was reduced to 2, and now you have 2 different types of profiles. I think they had to reduce it to 2 because they already foresaw us abusing Art Boys and making it so that if you had 4 attacks on the profile and you pair it with Anvil Smasher, you just reinforce it to 15, you give them Horfrost for Rend 3, and the Art Boys become some of the killiest units in the game. They have 2 wounds each and now a 3-up save, and it looks like it too. The new Art Boy models look freaking amazing. And 3-up save makes them a lot tankier. So with all-out defense, multiple all-out defenses, you can save on a 2 instead. Add 1 to the attack characteristics of this unit. Art Boys chop us if it made a charge. Okay, so 3 attacks on the charge. And Stickas. So these are the spears, the one that come with a new kit. You get additional Rend if they are the ones that are charged. Hmm. Okay. So I see something very interesting in this. You play Iron Suns, you get Ard Boys, you get a Maw Grunter. If you are somehow in a position where you can counter charge with a Maw Grunter, you can use the Monstrous Rampage to give them strike last and make it so that this unit and the Maw Grunter can bully it, where you have a rend of 2 when you are charged with the Stickas. And since you have a 2-inch reach, you can actually bully anything that charges you. That's really interesting. And if you buff it with Anvil Smasher and an Iron Sun's army, then you've got like maybe if you have 2 ranks of 5, that's like 20 attacks, fours and threes, rend 2 on sixes to hit our mortal wounds. That's kind of cool and interesting. You have these holy objective, you have a Mogranta on the side, like outside the objective, and ready to charge. And if there are other ways or other shenanigans you can have that can allow you to do a charge, then you have a lot of tricks. If you have a Tusk Boss, wait, let me read that profile again. If you have a Tusk Boss and it makes a charge move, you can reroll charges for all friendly Mogruntas. So if you find a way to use the Iron Sun's ability to charge multiple units at the same time during your opponent's turn, the Tusk Boss technically gives reroll to charges to all the other Mogrunters, which I think is pretty degenerate. It's really expensive on command points and probably just a fever dream without a Mock Crusher, but it's kind of cool. And I'm hoping that there's a command trait that lets a Tusk Boss give a command to multiple units just because it's interesting. Each time this unit fights, after all its attacks have been resolved, pick one enemy unit within 1 inch of this unit and roll a die for each monstrous unit within 1 inch of that unit. Okay. These dice rolls are referred to as shield bash rolls. For each shield bash roll of 6 plus, that enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wound. Okay. This is where you see the synergy with the Ard Boy Big Boss, because the Ard Boy Big Boss gives +1 to shield bash. So these guys not only possibly have a rend of 2 when they are charged, but they deal mortal wounds on a 5 up now each time this unit fights. Each time this unit fights, that's interesting wording. I wonder if there's going to be an artifact or ability in the supplement or in the Reign of the Brute that lets them fight multiple times. I kind of hope not. I mean, it'd be kind of cool, but I can also see that being heavily abused. So far, I love all these changes. It completely changes the dynamic of the game. I think, however, that the unit that actually, no, let's look at profiles before I talk about. Oh shit! Orc Ard Boys are now 220 points, so for 10 instead of just 5. So reinforcing them is going to be great, but also um having you to so it used to be about 80 points for 5. Now it's 160 for it. So there's an increase of about 60 points. 30 points. So it's like 110 for 5. So now it's like 220 for 10. Okay, that's a battle line unit. That's going to completely change the way some armies are built. I was going to say that this was going to be a straight up buff for Big Wa, and to an extent it still is. But now you can't just do a bunch of cheap 80-point MSUs in order to farm Big Wa points. I don't know if Games Workshop did this specifically to fix that or to temper that, but this is really cool. So you can have multiple MSUs of 220-point Ard Boys in Big Wa, or you can have multiple MSUs of Iron Skull. Oh, sorry, the smaller units like Iron Skulls, Mogroks, and the Brute Ragers. Okay. Hmm. In Big Wa. All right, here it is. So this is a unit. This Mograta Gougers unit is 180 points for 1. It's a behemoth, which but it can be reinforced and reinforced twice if your battle line general is a Mogranta. So you have these 540-point unit, triple Mogranta units running around the battlefield. The Mogranta hacking crew is 270 points. So for the monsters rampage and the extra attacks, you get 90 point. It's a 90-point increase. I find that and 2 extra wounds. I find it steep, but let's see what happens. Art Boy Big Boss is 100 points, so cheaper than a War Chanter. That makes a lot of sense. Zogrok Anvil Smasher is 160 points. Single unique, only for Iron Suns, and you can give a unique buff to units. I think that's interesting. The Tusk Boss on Ball Grunta is 380 points. So It's 70 points cheaper than a Maw Crusher, and I feel like not worth the points yet unless there is some way for it to issue commands to multiple units at the same time. We're not going to be seeing a destroyer artifact on the Tusk boss because it's not because the destroyer is only for mega bosses. Hmm. It's really interesting. There's a lot of weird lists I can come up with for this. For a Brute Rager, it's a unit, it's 100 points, and weird Brute Rekkas, which are crowd clears, 125. Okay. This gives me a lot to think about. And obviously, like, I'm a bit scattered right now because 10:30, it's all like 11 p.m. at night after a long work day. And I'm given this really beautiful, like, PDF to look through. So far, I think the Gruntas have potential, but it's really hard for us to say it's amazing without looking at the supplement and seeing how Armies of Renown will play out. I actually wonder if Armies of Renown is going to be more like a War Scroll battalion or if it's going to be a whole sub faction. A whole sub faction. If it's going to be a whole sub faction of its own, that means you can't mix and match it with Iron Suns, the Chappas, and Blood Tubes, which I think is a shame. Playing Maw Gruntas with mini pigs and Blood Tubes would be kind of cool. And being able to use Iron Suns with the new battle traits and new Grunta abilities actually unlocks a lot of very interesting options for Ironjawz. It's also cool that they brought the Iron Boys back to similar-ish stats from what they had in second edition, which with the extra rend and threes and threes, making them back to being big boy orcs instead of like smaller punier orcs. Okay. So far, all in all, I welcome all these options. I think that anything to shake up the meta for Ironjawz and is a good thing. Recently, I saw a 5-0 list from Sydney GT ran by AOS coach sport an Iron Suns list with 40 brutes just to counter Soul Blight. But before that, it's all just been Blood Tooths all the way if you want to be competitive in Ironjawz. So this might just be the reign of the brute. You know, we're going to open ourselves to two new archetypes or three possible new archetypes. That's Maw Gruntas, um, armies with two blocks of Ard Boy. So basically 660.30 model Ard Boy units, possibly, or maybe just one of those just to be interesting. And a bunch of Brute Rages that can be very good at just blocking the enemy lines, being able to run and charge, and being surprisingly fast for a bunch of brutes. And yeah, those are my honest like first hand impressions of this. I can't wait for Reign of the Brute to come out next week. All these models look like they'd be so interesting to play with. I've already submitted my pre-orders for them and I can't wait to test them out on the gaming table. So yeah, I think that's about it. This supplement is really cool, and if this is if this is like an indication of what Games Workshop has in store, then a lot of the older armies with outdated models, maybe Ogre Mod tribes and Beasts of Chaos and Stormcast Eternals, can probably benefit from a supplement as well. So I'm looking forward to the future. Everyone's expecting that we're going to be seeing fourth edition next summer, but I think that between now, September 2023, till summer of next year, there's going to be so much interesting, crazy stuff that can still happen for Age of Sigmar. If this is what they can do for Ironjawz, then I'm excited to see what they do with everyone else. And with that, I think that's all I really have to talk about. There's not much else to say or list building ideas I can pull out without the rest of the thing being shown, especially since Ard Boy big bosses can be generals, but they don't have any command traits because they're not technically mega bosses. So we're definitely missing a piece of the pie here. But yeah, that's about it for me tonight. What are your thoughts? A little bit rambly, but I'm actually legitimately excited for all this. If you have any questions, concerns, violent reactions, criticisms of what I have to say, sound off in the comments below. If you enjoy this kind of content, give us a like, give us a subscribe. It really helps out the channel. And with that, thank you so much. Follow us on Facebook, join our Discord, and Twitter. It's all in the description below. And that's it for me. Have a good one, everyone. Peace.